Welcome back, beautiful people. It's another beautiful Wednesday. We're feeling good about this Wednesday. We're halfway through the week, becoming the best versions of ourselves, doing it together. And you already know, if you're not quite feeling it today, a little bit of that, and avalanches of prosperity and abundance coming your way. And what we're going to be talking about today is something that is so important to not only relationship building, but also to you becoming the best version of yourself, that it's worth diving into a little bit. So with that being said, let's get into it. So today's concept is going to be about the difference between preference and attachment. So this is a concept that for me took a while for me to get, and it actually is still something that I'm working on right now. And let me describe what both of these things are. So an attachment, this is something that we here in America, we have attachments to things. Two of those main things that we have attachments to, number one is going to be our political system. Some people are attached to being a Republican or Democrat, for instance. It's right wing and left wing. We hear it all the time in the news media. If you're on the far left, you only believe in the ideologies of those people. If you're on the far right, you only believe in the ideologies of those people. Another example of attachment here in America is sports teams. And this was huge for me coming from Chicago. You have a North Side team and a South Side team, the White Sox and Chicago Cubs, right? You had to pick one side or the other. I'm either a diehard Cubs fan or I'm a diehard White Sox fan. And it's interesting because if you go to those games, you'll actually see people in the stands fighting each other over these ideologies because they have this attachment to that specific team. They call themselves a Cubs fan. They call themselves a White Sox fan. They call themselves Republican. They call themselves Democrat. Whatever the case may be, they identify with these attachments. Therefore, they become part of these attachments, and this is who these people are. Their ego gets involved with this attachment. And ultimately, what you start to see is if somebody who, as an example, is a diehard Republican, if they run into somebody who's a diehard Democrat, those people instantly become enemies. They don't like each other. They immediately go, there's no way I'll ever listen to what this person has to say because already we're off to a bad start. He's a diehard Democrat. What the heck? I'm a diehard Republican. What the heck? I don't ever want to understand that concept. And there's a line drawn in the sand. You're either with me or you're against me. And that's what I mean by these attachments. We get so attached to these opinions of things that, truth be told, at the end of the day, really aren't that important. And it becomes the point where we won't be friends with somebody. We'll be complete and bitter enemies with that person. We won't listen to them. We won't go into business with them. We won't have relationships with them. It's you have to be on my side or that's it. And there's a difference between attachments and preferences. And when you understand the difference between attachment and preferences, your life starts to change from a standpoint of you can start fostering new relationships. You can accept new ideas. You can listen to other people's opinions. You can go into business with people, go into relationships with people. So here's what a preference is. The way I like to describe a preference is, let's say that you're at a place like Old Country Buffet. Love that place. Man, wish they still had those around here in Arizona. But let's say you go to an Old Country Buffet, for instance, and you've never had food before. And you start to put everything on your plate because you want to try a little bit of everything. So you're putting the sardines on there. You're putting the cheeseburgers on there. You're putting the jalapenos. You're putting the broccoli. You're putting the mashed potatoes. You're putting it all on there. What starts to happen is you sit down, you start to eat, you go, oh, I really like cheeseburgers. Okay. Jalapenos though, yeah, I don't like those. Sardines could definitely do without those. But these mashed potatoes, these are really good. And so what you start to do is you start to develop a preference for the food that you like to eat. I love this food. I don't love this food. I can do without it. But you don't get attached to it. You don't go, I hate jalapenos so much I never want to look at them. No, it was something you tried one time and decided I didn't like it, and that's okay. So the difference between an attachment and a preference is with an attachment, you identify with it. It becomes a part of who you are. And with a preference, you prefer this, but if this doesn't happen, you're okay with it. If I order a cheeseburger and a jalapeno comes out, that's fine. I'm not going to be angry. I'm just going to not eat the jalapeno. No big deal, right? Now, if we could learn to use these preferences in our relationships, in our business, in our work life, in every single facet, life would be spectacular. And here's the reason for that. Let's say that you go into business with somebody, and this business is super fantastic. You're so in love with it. It's such a good idea. You can't wait to get started on it. And then all of a sudden, your business partner goes, hey, just to let you know, I'm a such and such. I'm a vegetarian, or I am somebody who, I don't know, only eats meat. You don't like to eat meat, right? And then that person says that to you and you're like, oh no, I can't work with this person. Instantly, that business is now in a position where it probably isn't going to survive because you have two partners that are at odds because of an attachment that they have to something. Now, let's go ahead and say that you go into business with somebody and you love to eat food and they are totally against food, but these are totally against meat. I'm sorry. So you are somebody who loves meat, loves eating burgers, chicken, all that stuff, and there's somebody who, I'm good, I don't want to do any of that, I'm all plant-based, right? Now, you have a preference for that, but you're okay with the fact that your business partner doesn't eat meat. You're okay with the fact that they're all plant-based, and it doesn't put this business at odds, and it gives the business an opportunity to succeed because ultimately you're okay with the fact that this person has an opinion over here. You're not attached to it. You're okay with it. You can put that aside and you can continue building a business. Relationships are the same way. You want to have preferences in a relationship. I would prefer somebody do this, or I would prefer somebody that does this. If they don't do it at the end of the day, I'm okay with it because I love this person regardless. But let's say you have an attachment to something. I really need this person to do this, or I really need them to do that, and they're not doing this, and they're not giving me that. That relationship ends in a heartbeat because you're not getting something that you're attached to. And so the way you really want to look at attachments and preferences is if there's something in life that you want and you're okay with not having it, that's a preference. I would prefer this. But if there's something in life that you really, really want, you have to have, and it isn't presented to you, and it ruins relationships, and it ruins businesses, and it ruins friendships, and it ruins goals, and it ruins your work life, or whatever the case may be, you need to examine that, because ultimately what you're doing is you're affecting your relationships with other people, you're affecting your capabilities to grow, you're affecting those around you, you're affecting your work life, you're affecting those ideas of where you want to go in the future because you're no longer open-minded enough to take that next step or put your difference aside or be okay with accepting something that maybe you don't want right now, but will ultimately help you get where you want to go. And so that's the difference between attachment and preferences. And if I could really just break this down to the most simple form I can, you'll know you're attached to something if you have an electrical charge to it. If your vibration changes because somebody did something or said something or is this or that, and it instantly affects your vibration, you have an attachment to it and you need to examine it. Because if there is an attachment to it, you're not allowing that person to be who they really are, therefore affecting your relationship with them, and that could ultimately hinder you from getting where you want to go. So I hope that this video helped you guys. This is something that for me was a huge thing for me to understand and realize, and now I use it in my day in, day out routine because ultimately I understand that it's okay to have preferences, but I don't want to be attached to something because if I'm attached to something, I could be missing out on something that's extraordinary and can help me get where I want to go. So I'm thankful for the support of this channel. I want to let you guys know how much I'm behind you in pursuit of your goals and dreams. If you have any questions or comments in regards to this concept, go ahead and drop that as a comment down below, and of course I'll be sure to address it on a future video. Other than that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, definitely make sure you do so, smashing this subscribe button right here. Boom, 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 hitting that thing. Of course, giving this video a thumbs up. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Peace.